Question 25 reads, a polling agency wanted to test whether a ballot measure would pass with greater than 50% yes votes. The agency sampled 1,000 registered voters selected at random, and 50.6% of the voters favored the ballot measure. The margin of error associated with this poll was plus or minus 3%. Based on the poll's results, which of the following statements must be true? Okay, before we go into the answer choices, I want to talk about population, sample, and margin of error. Let's say I'm doing an experiment. I want to measure the average height of people in New York City. Am I going to measure each individual height of every person in New York City? That would take an incredibly long time, right? I would never do that. What I would do, and what researchers will do, is take a sample, take a representative sample of people and measure their height so you can quickly do the experiment, right? And finish it. And that's what this experiment is doing as well. They take a sample of people from a population. But the problem with taking a sample is that there's going to always be an associated margin of error. Meaning that when I would apply the results that I get from the sample back to the population, right? And that's what the goal of each research always is to apply the results back to the population. There's gonna be a margin of error. So margin of error really only applies to the population, okay? And what it means in this context particularly, it says the margin of error is plus or minus 3%, okay? And so the results we got from the sample was 50.6. And so a margin of error would make the population, when everybody in the population votes, for instance, in this question, okay, the overall people that are favor the ballot measure will not be exactly 50.6% like in the sample, but more in a range of 47.6 to 53.6% according to this margin of error, right? What I'm doing is subtracting 3 as the lower limit and adding 3 as the upper limit, right? And so realistically, when the population does the voting, everybody in the population does the voting, according to the study, 47.6 to 53.6% of people should be in favor of the ballot, and should be any number in between that should be correct, right? And so now we can go into our answers, okay? So the percentage of voters who will vote yes for the ballot measure is 50.6. That is wrong. The reason being is, well, that's the sample, not the population. The sample cannot 100% be the same as the population unless the margin of error is 0, which is unlikely. The ballot measure will pass with more yes votes than no votes, but the percentage of votes it will receive cannot be predicted. The percentage of votes can be predicted, right? And that's what we're doing. That's the whole idea of doing this experiment, okay? So I don't know what B is saying. C, the ballot measure will pass with at least 53.6% of the votes. Okay, so here they mention the upper limit, but it's completely irrelevant and wrong, actually. And so we'll actually look at D first. The poll results do not provide sufficient evidence to conclude that the ballot measure will pass. And this is our answer, because the ballot measure will pass if there are greater than 50% yes votes. But our population, right, when the population does this, does the voting, we see that there could be a chance of less than 50% votes, right? 47.6% obviously is less than 50%. So there's a chance of the ballot measure not passing. And so you simply cannot predict whether it will pass or not according to the samples, this study, right?